Okay, we're up and recording. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Art Lexcia podcast. This is me, Wesley Pepper. This is episode 242. And crazy week. Lots have been happening all over South Africa, but we're going to be talking about that today. Today we're talking to Mr. Cecil Abrahams from Port Elizabeth or Klabeja in the Eastern Cape. He's a writer, historian, also worked at the South End Museum, which is a very, very interesting space in Somerset. If you're ever in that part of the world, I definitely suggest you go and you look at it. A lot to do with the colored people's history of the area, and he wrote a very beautiful book about it. We're going to be discussing about all of that. Without further ado, Mr. Abrams, my brother, thank you again. Thank you for taking the time out to come to talk to us. It's afternoon, so firstly, good afternoon. How are you? And welcome.
I'm fine, thank you. And I hope you're well on that side of the world too.
Yeah, it was like a cold this morning, but it's nice now. It's a lovely day. Yeah, let's get straight into it, man. You worked as an administrator in the South End Museum, but to my understanding, you also work you also a teacher. Is that correct?
That's correct. Before I went to the Southern Museum, I taught at GJ Low Primary School, and then I did my degrees, part-time on my own. And then later on, when we had the opportunity via the local university, in those days, as a so-called non-white person, you had to write up a permit. You had to get a permit to study further. So I managed to get my degrees, and eventually I was taken from the primary school to the high school. So I started off at Boysons Park High School, stayed there for 2 years, then to Cedarburg, and then I landed up at Bertram High School, where I actually became the principal there for 5 years. So, with government as it was in reducing, the number of teachers, I put myself into that early retirement package. And
Okay.
then I was, in a way, headhunted, and I got working as administrator at the Southern Museum for 22 years. So
Sure.
from 2001, when it started, until I left, say, in 2023. So I really enjoyed myself there. It was a place where one could learn a lot and find out really about your roots, which actually is what we are going to talk about
Yeah. Yeah.
today.
Yeah. 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 Let's jump in there, man. Can you just give us an overview of the museum? So for example, like where's it based, and what does the museum showcase?
Well, the Southern Museum is very well placed, close to the harbor and just around the corner to the airport, down Warmer Boulevard, on the corner of Warmer Boulevard and Beach Road. So it's an old building there. It used to serve, the sailors, the seafarers club before. So the guys at that moment in time, I think they were very fortunate in getting that building. And although it's via working with a trust, they have managed to keep that building and to serve the people who were forcibly removed from Southend. Now you must remember that time, the 68, the late 60s, early 70s, when so-called, mainly colored people were removed. We can't forget that Africans had been removed before
Yeah.
that. So this
Yeah.
was a very evil practice. I mean,
Yeah.
you're taking away your house, where your family had been for perhaps many years, and then you had to lose your home and go to a strange place. And this is what prompted, various organizations to get started so that they can talk about, like the organization that I am with now, NARIC, Northern Areas Heritage Research and Interpretive Center. for short, NARIC. I worked there with Dr. Michael Barry and then
Yeah.
Christopher Dupree, both well qualified people, in the arts. Michael used to work at the university as director of the arts department there, and Christopher was in charge of the what's the name of that place again in the township, Red Location
Red
Museum.
location.
He was in charge of that. So these guys are well qualified with degrees and so on. And the three of us decided, we are going to start something. So we have done some work already in Hanky and so on, but it was the forced removals and how people suffered, over time, and the effects of forced removals that made us want to, come together, form this organization, which was first another one, and then we recharged and started Narik. So that's a long story, so I'm not going to go into all of that now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
back to Southern Museum, the task was to remember the people and their lives in Southend. Because Southend was the biggest of the other areas. We must remember it wasn't just Southend where removals took place in then Port Elizabeth. It was also, Northend where I came from. And you had Fairview and Salisbury Park, Central, Sidwell, and so on. The people, all those areas. But Southend was the biggest one, like District 6 in Cape Town.
Mm.
And it's this removal. Some people actually died because of this removal. I mean, older people who stayed for how many years, decades in their homes, and then being told you must move. How can you tell that to an older person? So it was tragic, and there were people who stood up against this kind of removal. And Dennis Brutus was one of them. So I this Southern Museum was started by certain people. People like Christopher Dupree was one of the founders of the Southern Museum, and there were others as well. Like even Errol Haynes and a number of other people. I won't go down the list now because some
Yeah.
helped and then left. But there was a group called the Trust that still remains today, of which Michael Berry is trying to run. Their major problem is funding because it's
Mm.
very strange. Our government they talk about anti-racism, but they're very racist with whatever
Yeah.
they do. And I'm sorry to say, but so-called
Yeah.
colored people are actually being suppressed and not being allowed to develop. And so funding will not go to the Southern Museum. Very difficult. They may say this and may say that, but this is a fact of life. Southern Museum is
It is.
not getting the funding it should be getting. But remarkably, by holding on to that building, and secondly, by getting qualified people to set up exhibitions there, they have done tremendously well there and portrays the whole story of forced removals as it happened in Port Elizabeth then. And where it's just a pity that where they moved to, that story hasn't been fully told.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us.
Where they were
Tell us.
removed to and what. Sorry?
Tell us, yeah, give us a bit of an overview of the forced removals. For example, like what year did it start? Like where were the people moved to, and what happened to the area after the removals happened?
Well, it was, the area was taken mainly over by, people, development organizations. And so you have all these townhouses around there. If Southern had been naturally allowed to change, I think it would have been a very important part for tourism and
Yeah.
business in the city. But that didn't wasn't allowed to happen. So somebody got in with townhouses for in the center of the city. That's just not the right thing to happen. So we have these townhouses there and a fire station there. Well, obviously it will help the harbor if those oil tanks must explode one day. It's going to be a big problem. That's going to move to Kucha eventually, whenever government decides. They take their time with certain things that they decide. So this is the problem, Wesley, that we had a government against people, before apartheid, or during apartheid rather, and we still have a government today that is not helpful to the people. So they are not being helpful to the Southern Museum and also to the people who had been removed. So, I say colored people were never in charge. You must understand when I say in charge. They were never really given a chance to rule and look after themselves. You just go down history,
Yeah.
you will
Yeah.
see that
I agree.
they always
I
had
agree.
somebody else, another organization ruling them. So even today, after from 1994 onwards, nothing has really been done for the people in the northern areas, and that's so sad. And I'm sure the same applies to elsewhere. District 6, they had a better, reasonable municipality in Cape Town, and there has been much that has been done in District 6. Yeah, people have actually been brought back to District 6 and so on. Whereas the townhouses has taken place here, people can't come back, unfortunately. But nothing has been done really for the people in the northern areas, which should have been done. This government should have done something about it, about the mines, the trauma that people had to go through in being removed. Yes, and it is trauma, it's intergenerational trauma
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
are still suffering from today. And if that can be dealt with in some way, we need to get money, social development people, programs, etc. And that is why we started this organization with very little money. And with whatever we try to do, we try to look at the trauma that people have gone through. We try to help in art, with programs and so on. We've succeeded in a little way. I myself got into the book writing, but we are definitely looking at research. And there's a lot that I can tell you about this whole area, and it will touch your family as well from the Eastern Cape, because it is specifically specific, specifically about this area that we need to talk about. The background, how people lived, how they raised
Yeah. Yeah.
themselves in the northern areas, how they've been able
Give
to
us some
try and look
background
after
on it.
themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us some background on the on what was the area like culturally, socially, and politically before the removals, of course.
Well, I try to tell you about politically. We haven't, the people in the northern areas haven't really been helped. The area has become, a place of gangsterism, a place of drugs. Unemployment is very high. Poverty is very high there as well. So, development doesn't take place. Uh, and, and you need to feel sorry for the people. I'm telling you, the northern areas is a big area. It's over
Yeah.
300,000 people living there.
Yeah.
All the suburbs is in that book. So it's very strange that after 1994. Well, we voted in 1994, but prior to that, Mandela had already been released. And then suddenly you have people waking up as if to say, we need to make a point. And that was the 1990, which the newspapers called riots. People went around and burning down, especially Labour Party businesses and so on, and caused a lot of trouble. Actually, I'm so sorry. The Chinese people who lived there, they all left, and they went, I think most of them went back or rather to Johannesburg. But they called it the riots, but we called it an uprising. because the people of the northern areas were trying to make a statement of things that were touching them in their lives. They weren't allowed to develop. They weren't allowed to do this. They were the people with the downtrodden people. And I think here and there they made mistakes, but it wasn't a riot, it was an uprising. I hope you're getting an understanding a little bit why an
Yeah,
uprising
and
and
that's
not
very good to put the.
riots.
Yeah, yeah, that's a.
Sorry?
I think that's a very good perspective. Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out because there is a difference between the two. But please continue.
Yes, there is a difference, yes. People needed to make a statement about themselves, which still hasn't been corrected. It's so sad. I think sometimes there are people who try to make a difference, but the difference has not been made. But there are opportunities there. And I wrote a book about the uprising,
Yeah,
and that's what it's called. And although I retired from the museum in 2023, I still work with this organization, NARIC, and we also seek funds. It's very difficult for people
yeah,
of so-called colored background to get funding. You don't get funding.
yeah.
I think perhaps you
I
can
can
tell
relate.
me about that.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, but it's very difficult. If you're not a black African, they don't look at you. They bypass you, and that is so strange. We're struggling, but we can succeed because we have the qualities, we have the abilities, and we can succeed. We recently, not so long ago, we did programs, we projects in Henki under the
Yeah.
Sarah Bartman project. They're trying to set up a cultural center there, the Sarah Bartman Cultural Center in Henki. And we worked there with the people, and it was amazing what we found out there. Even with these immigrants and so on, how they took over the Somalians and the people from Zimbabwe and so on, and no work for the people in Henki. So there's a lot that needs to be done. The focus needs to get back also to the colored people, perhaps more from the Cape Townians, the Cape Town municipality. There is a definite trying to upgrade people there. Well, they may look at it differently, but we would like to see something similar in Port Elizabeth. Well, I still call it Port Elizabeth, right? Not
Yeah,
Gqeberha. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
No, you're
that.
not alone.
Okay, but the ANC hasn't really done a good job as far as communities are concerned. Let me. I'm going to touch on something that I will be looking at,
Please
but
go ahead.
the influence of the church, and in what we are facing today from a government who wants to introduce communistic measurements of how people should live. That's a problem. Yeah, if you need to look at where is most of the people here, if you look at their background, how the role of the church has, been suppressed actually by the ANC government, was come with a communistic approach. Comrade here and comrade there. We were never comrades in that sense, or everything revolutionary. Everything must be revolutionary. We are not revolutionary in that sense. The church, Christianity was not started in Europe, number one. It was started in the Middle East, like the Muslims, like the Jews. That's where Christianity started. And people must start thinking in that line. It's not from Europe because our country is like this now. Anything that is from Europe needs to be, colonization and all it needs to be pushed one side. But the missionaries played a very important role in the upbringing of people in the Eastern Cape. Our task was to look at the mission stations at Bethelsdorp, Katberg, and Henki. We looked at those three mission stations. We don't know much about those mission stations, but the impact is still seen today. And that impact was in our schools because from the mission stations where they came, the missionaries came here to Christianize the heathen, so to say. That's the statement. But they didn't only come here for Christianizing; they also came here for education. And there's an educational story that links our schools with churches, etc. I attended St. Mark's Primary. I don't know your mother which school she went to, you know, but all the churches had schools, and what they inculcated into the minds of young people was a moral society. So then we used to know discipline. We used to know, good manners, etc. Now all that has fallen away with this new educational process.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the missionaries did, it wasn't only the Anglican Church; it was mainly the Congregational Church, like Grace Memorial and those churches that had schools. And the people I interviewed were people who had experienced what it was like to attend a school uh, under a church. And it's amazing to see the difference in the child, the product today compared to then. So that's what's missing in our schools, the moral upbringing. That is missing.
I can relate to that.
Because, will you relate to that?
Yep.
Well, you
Yeah, I
can ask
agree.
your mother too. It was
I
different
agree.
then.
Yeah,
I'm hearing,
I agree. Please continue,
I'm
Simon.
hearing. How must I continue? So
Yep,
yes,
please.
I think that is missing from our schools today. And the first thing, the approach of communism was to change that aspect in schools. I think some schools still do it against policy, where at assembly there will be the reading from the Bible, a prayer, and so on, But we used to teach our children differently from how children are being taught today. Now there was in this area of, Port Elizabeth, Henke, Katberg, and so on, it was very much under the missionaries. And they attached that teaching from the church to the school. And you need to look at this congregationalist approach in this area that I mentioned now. And you will see how strong it is even today amongst our children. But now you had the ANC coming along, and one of their ministers, Asmal,
Mm.
he took away the teaching colleges. Now, the missionaries started the Dawa Teachers Training College, and you had so many teachers who were qualified from Dawa. I started when I left high school, Southern High. I managed to get into Dawa Training College, and I was one of those teachers. I trained there. Well, like I told you, I did my degrees afterwards,
Yeah.
and that is how I got into the high school. But that Oswald decided no, close the training colleges. Now that is the difference today. I want you to check what they are saying in the newspapers. That children up to grade 4 cannot read
Yeah.
anything with an understanding of what they're reading. That's the
There's
one thing.
first year
Our children
university
are
students
being
are also
failed.
struggling.
They
So
struggling, yes. They are being failed by so Dower Teachers Training College, as other colleges then, because everything the ANC just wanted everybody to go to the university. No, you had to. If you want to become a teacher, you must go to the university. So it was more a curriculum, more subject based. It's more uh, 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 teachers not focused too much on our primary school children. And our primary schools need the
yeah,
focus, not the high
yeah.
schools. The primary
Yeah.
school needs to focus. And this is where colleges like Dower Teachers Training College helped, assisted, trained those teachers. And I can tell you, you can go anywhere, right up to then Southwest Africa, Namibia today. You will find that the influence of Dower Training College. Now it's a mess. Our educational system is a mess. No morals, no proper guidance to where we want to focus upon. And teachers are just now to do with assessments. It's no more teaching, it's assessments. And you can't change this unless you change the government. Our educational system is a mess. So NARIC is looking at how can we run programs that can look at upgrading teachers, upgrading learners, upgrading children in the arts, in education, in whatever way that we can. But we need a center to be set up in Bethelsdorp. That's what we hope to do. But obviously, it's going to be so difficult to get money out of this or government to assist us with that. I've said a lot, my friend. Is there
Excuse
anything
me.
else you want me
No,
to?
no, no, no. Thank you for that. Like you said a lot there. But this is the platform for that. Um, what I wanna ask you. I want to bring it back to your book. 1990, the uprising in the northern areas. You mentioned also of all the people that you interviewed.
What about the northern area?
No, no, no. I'm talking about
Look, it's a big
about the book.
area, number one.
Wait first.
But
No, no, no,
obviously,
no, Mr. Evans.
if you ride through
Uh,
there, you'll find people are very, they're not, because look, unemployment is so high. You'll find people standing around, and not being in work. It's number one. There are still churches there that play a role, like, the Catholic Church, St. James, the Congregational Church, Waste Memorial, the Anglican Church there, St. Michael's in Shorter Township, and, elsewhere. I've moved out of the northern areas because of, your children have moved. And
yeah.
that's
No,
another
no.
thing yeah, that's another thing that one needs to talk about, because our children, we try our best to educate them, but they need to get out. They need to go and look for work somewhere else. My children are working. They're living now in the western areas. So with the grandchildren, I moved out as well with my wife. So we live with my daughter now. But after 46 years in the northern areas, my heart is still there, and
Yeah,
so
no,
there
I hear
is
you.
lots to be done there. But we need to put things together how to go about it.
Mr. Abrams, I wanna bring it back to your book, man. You mentioned like through text all the guys that you interviewed. You also mentioned Dennis Brutus that also had a role to play. I know he also
Yes,
stayed in Port Elizabeth back then. Can you just
yes.
give us an overview on some of the people you interviewed and what did they have to say and their role to play in this in the uprising in the early 90s?
Well, by then, by 1990, he had left the country already. We need to remember Dennis Brutus was a teacher, qualified teacher. He taught at Patterson High School,
Okay.
so he had an influence on quite a few teachers there and students. And one of I think he was also a teacher there. Arthur Nokia is
Mm.
somebody we need to look at. He's not been spoken about. But Dennis lived in North End. I also lived in North End at first before we were removed. And then already he was an activist. Well, eventually, the government had to get hold of him. So he was
Okay.
imprisoned, shot at, and so on, and exiled. But he's teaching at Patterson. And I wanted to raise that school. That school is a beacon in the
Mm.
whole of the northern areas. Patterson High School, uh, by Mrs. Dodonker as principal, a lady, who's doing marvelous job there. She needs to be praised. She needs to be supported for what she's doing. Although there are other high schools where things are going well too, but she needs to be supported with the energy and with what the programs that that she's running. So Dennis Brutus taught there, and eventually he was exiled out of the country. And there's a lot to talk about him because he realized that South Africa, the apartheid can be brought down via sport. And that is how he and others started Sandrock. So that is how he is remembered. You know, that time when the Springbok team went to New Zealand and
Yeah.
they stopped
Yeah,
the
in the
tour
80s.
there, you see.
Yeah.
So he's somebody that must stand out tremendously. But he's not given that, you know, Dennis Brutus. I met him when I had just more or less started at the Southern Museum, and as a much younger person, he was invited there and he sat in a meeting talking to the trustees of the Southern Museum. And I remember there listening to all the things that he had to say, you know, and he had a lot to say and a lot has been written about him. But the USA was looking after him.
Mm.
And, you know,
Yeah.
until he died, you know, he had a professorship there for him, for himself. So they looked
Mm.
after him there. But Dennis is a hero. He should be looked at more
Yeah,
strongly in this country, but he
absolutely.
won't.
Absolutely.
He won't. So he taught poetry and English at Pakistan High School. And people remember him for his poems and so on, you know.
Mm.
But his poems are not in the schools. It's so amazing to me. What about, you know, Nokia, Arthur Nokia, who left this country because of apartheid? And he died in England and he's buried there. If, you know, repatriation of bodies is being done all over. Why aren't we, you know, carrying this man as well? So there's another person who's done exceptionally well, died in England, buried there. What are we doing about it? You know? So these are the conversations that myself and Michael and Christopher, we talk about these things, you know, if it's possible, how we can do that. So, yeah, Errol Haynes tried this kind of thing. He's a trustee at the Southern Museum. Errol Haynes, uh, well, very strong ANC member then. I don't know where he is now, but he tried to bring the Khoisan group found in this area. He tried to bring them together. You know, then they were still very divided and fighting amongst themselves. It's a difficult story, but it's also a story that needs to be told. So in my books that I write, I focus on the Khoisan people as they were, you know, what is the word now? They were suppressed and taken over by the track
Yeah.
boers and the farms, the
There was
land
a
that's all
genocide
around here.
against them. Yeah.
Sorry?
There was a
Yeah,
genocide
the land
against
has
them.
been taken.
They were
And
wiped
then,
out,
you know, today we
especially
can
in
see
Women's
who has got the land and how it's being utilized. And I've got nothing against people, you know, developing and with the land. That's another issue that's, I don't know if it can be corrected from we're talking about the late 1600s, 1700s. That was a time when the Khoisan lost about just everything that they had, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he tried to bring, Errol tried to bring them together. So he's another kind of hero here, you know, soccer, a guy very strong in soccer, in football. And he helped Danny Jordan, and we've got the stadium now because of them from the World
Mm.
Cup, and this
Mm.
other stadium in Galvandale. So there are
Mm.
things that people have tried to do here, uh, but it's not what we want. There's
It's
much
not.
more that
It's not.
needs to be
It's not.
done.
It's not cultural. Yeah. 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 And building a stadium doesn't really. I mean, yeah. Culturally, I find
Look,
there's a serious lack of work there.
there's a serious look, Wesley. there is so much that one must be able to talk about. There are people who are even trying to help with the trauma. I'm talking about intergenerational trauma that people don't even, they're not even aware that this trauma still exists. Uh, when we talk about how you've been suppressed as a human being all these years, and you've never been able to be in charge. Now that's something that I like to talk about. Being in charge is something that you also need to know about yourself. Being in charge of something, being regarded as a human being, being proud, being able to achieve, and there's no things that's inhibiting or preventing. So the apartheid government, colonialism, apartheid, and now, even now, this government of democracy. Yes, you may be able to have the right to go and live wherever you want to live. You may have the right to go and vote because you have the right to vote. But you don't have the right to develop yourself and to develop the people around you. And that's what this government is not doing. So if they tell us, well, we've done a lot, they haven't done much for the development of people, of communities. And
I
this
agree.
community of the northern areas has not been developed.
Yeah, Mr. Abrams,
So I can,
you're saying a lot of sorry, let me just
there's a
come in
lot, my
there.
friend.
You touched on some really serious issue there, especially culturally, because I can testify, and it's the same across most of the country, unfortunately, especially in brown or so-called colored areas. There's very little
Yes.
development. And I'm an artist, and I worked for years as a cultural activist. And I can tell you, culturally, these areas are starved completely. That's why it's easy for them to latch on to pop politics and all this nonsense
Yeah.
that's out there. But I just want to bring it back, or not necessarily bring it back, but just add on, or get your take on. So we in 2026. You mentioned about the moral decline, which I can absolutely agree there. That is for sure. And the work that you guys are doing at NARIC. So what other programs or what other initiatives are you looking at?
Well, look, what was said when we had St. Thomas High School. I don't know with
Yeah, yeah, I'm
the help
familiar
of
with.
the Catholics and government then, the Labour Party. They had the school built, St. Thomas, in Beetlestone Road, and they added to the school. They added a art section, and so people were being taught there how to use the art, painting or poetry or music or whatever. It's still there, but this government closed that section down. So there's no art development in the whole of the northern areas. So although they have the facilities there at St. Thomas, it is not being utilized. Okay, so that's one failure. Now, Michael, who received an honorary doctorate for his work,
Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar
he
with Dr. Barry.
yeah, he's still at the Southern Museum as a trustee and trying to run the museum since I left. He was a teacher at St. Thomas, and he tried hard, even via the department, to try and save the art facilities and to make it work. But this government just decided to close it down, and it's closed. So there's no art that's being developed in the northern areas, except, in part of the curriculum in the primary school, where children can do some paint work, working with paints, working with what do you call this? Uh, they use for their hands,
Sculpture.
man.
Yeah, sculpture, clay. Yeah.
Various things that they do. various things that children can do. That's being allowed as part of art, the primary school. So, and then the kids are not being taken further as far as that kind of development is concerned. So there's nothing. Okay. There are, I can tell you, if you really look at the people of the northern areas, there is so much talent.
Yeah,
If, look, let's just look at
absolutely.
now the Dennis Brutus story, and we look at poets in the northern areas. Besides Dennis and Arthur Nokia, you have Vincent Oliphant. I don't know if you've heard of Vincent Oliphant and
I'm not familiar
Shelvin
with this, but
Shelvin
anyway, continue.
Melborough. Yeah, they're poems. These guys are poets. Even Shelley Berry. I don't know if you heard of Shelley Berry. She's Michael Berry's sister. She's now in Cape Town. Unfortunately, she lost the use of her legs via a shooting accident. At the height of the riots in Cape Town. So we lost a beautiful girl, but she carried on working. She's brave. She's strong, and she's in the film business, storytelling, and that sort of stuff. Shelley Berry. And there are others. You have this. Let me just check here in my book. I'll be with you now. Brian Walters. I don't know if you heard of him. Brian Walter. He tries to carry on the poetry teaching in Helensvale, one of the suburbs, one of the so-called rough suburbs in the northern areas. Brian Walter has got an organization there going with poetry. And there are people who trying to write, but they don't have, they haven't been taught. So number one. Number two, they don't get the funding, and so there's no background. But there are painters there. There are musicians. I tell you, the choirs, nearly every church has got a choir. And that stems from the missionaries, where people were the learning. And there are oralists and teachers at schools with pianos. So the northern area still has, that whole thing of being able to develop the arts. And there are
Yeah,
people, whether it's singing or music or writing or whatever, but they struggle. It's a struggle. There's no formulation of how people can study further and be helped in these genres of the arts. So there is a problem. With myself and Michael and Chris, we focus on research. That's a very important thing. How you research and you'll
very
find out
important.
so much more. So we focus on research, and as part of our name, you'll see research is there in our name. We need to find out. Now, let me tell you what I used, because in writing, even in writing, you have to be authentic. You cannot just write from your head or whatever the case may be. So we use certain things. We look at good books that have been written by people, and there's been some very good books, I can tell you, about the colored people, etc. So there's a writing of books that we can research. There are archives, Cape Town, overseas, the London Missionary Society. There are archives where you can get information from. But being authentic, besides these books and this kind of information, I use the oral history program, and this is getting from people who experience. So you get these people in an oral history session, and you download whatever they say, and you can use that information. Okay. Another thing that I use newspaper articles, which are regarded as authentic, and
Yeah,
I looked at the Herald and Sunday Times, and there's a lot written about whatever you need to find out about. And I cut it out and I paste it onto pages, and I file it into a file that I can use information from. So You got to use authentic material, and you got to go into the field to find out what is happening out there. Anything else, Meneer?
Mr. Adams, you said so much, eh? And you gave us some really interesting insight into not just the northern areas, but the south end area and the museum itself. And you're speaking such a lot to like the pitfalls or the struggles, not necessarily pitfalls, but like the struggles of this place. And yeah, I'm like and I sort of
I'll tell you what
wanna
to
wrap
do.
up. Yeah, please continue.
If you don't mind, if I can suggest something, you're right.
Please,
There is so
please,
much.
please do.
I want you to listen to this interview, and then there are sections that you want to focus upon, and then you can tell me, can we just talk about that specific point or that specific point? You know, and then we can make time for a different kind of situation that we can focus more and
Yeah,
perhaps
I
bring
like that
out
idea.
more.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that idea. Let's do this. Let's do this because I like that idea, and I definitely, yeah, no, we can definitely do that. Because I'm also interested in, because we're mentioning like how culture is starved, these areas are, but yet the talent exists because that narrative is all over the
Sorry, what?
country, and
How?
I'm talking specifically colored, the so-called colored areas, and we can
Yes.
definitely look into that. But like, I wanna, no, just for the purpose of this recording, I sort of wanna wrap up here, but I wanna get your point on two things. The first one is, your the research that you guys are doing, the information. Where can people like myself and others, where can we get access to this information, and how do we contact you if we want to read
Wesley,
what you
Wesley,
had to say?
you're breaking up. Wesley. You're breaking up.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you
So
hear
I
me now?
can, yes, you were breaking up. I can hear you now.
Okay, man. Yeah, man. I wanted to ask all you guys research and books around the history of the area. Where can we get hold of information like that?
I'm listening.
Yeah, did you get that
I'm
question?
listening.
Yeah, where can we get hold
No,
of info?
you were gonna say something.
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Uh, okay. Well, I can
You were
I
break.
can I can hear you. I can hear you fine on my side.
Yeah, you breaking up on my side.
Ash, 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 ash. You still can't hear me?
No, I can hear you now.
Okay, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, and then let's wrap up here because maybe the network will become a bit faulty. But can you just tell us where can we access all of your writing and research? Is there a contact? Is there a website or something like that we can contact you if people are interested in reading?
Well, you have my email address and you have my cell number. So if people want to ask questions, they
They
can
should use
contact
those
me
means.
via those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then like in closing, Mr. Abrams, and like um 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 like I'd be very interested to explore some of these themes a bit deeper, but we can do that in a on a on a future episode, and I'll definitely keep up to touch. I'll definitely keep
Okay.
in touch regarding that. Because like this stuff strikes I'm an artist myself, man, and there's a few ideas and stuff I have and so forth, and I think there's definitely room for collaboration there, man. But I just want to say again, man, thank you very much for taking your time out to come and to talk to us on the Art Lexcia podcast. And just like in closing, man, the South End Museum, can you just tell us, its operating hours and when can people go, when can people go there, and is there any I don't know, event or something like that you could possibly highlight?
I will give you a lady who's actually very much the contact person there was Beverly Peterson. Uh, she and besides Michael, but Michael is busy, comes in and out there at the museum, but Beverly is always there. So any event and so on, I think it's a good thing to give them also some, you know, uh, time for people or people to know more about what's happening at the museum. So
Now
um,
we'll do that.
I'll come back with her cell
Fantastic.
number and the museum's cell number as well. That
All
I will
right,
do
right,
for you.
yeah.
Okay,
All right, for
and
sure,
then
100
we can
percent.
take it from
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there as far as the
Yes.
museum is concerned.
Yes, let's do that. And just to my listeners, I'll add any other additional information in the description box there below.
Okay, man. Yeah.
Follow up on
Okay.
anything like that. But once again, Mr. Abrams, thank you very much for coming through, man. It's still Friday, so I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I'll
Yeah,
be
I'll
publishing
try.
this episode probably in 2 weeks' time because I have a bunch of I did a
Yes.
few recordings yesterday and I've got one tomorrow as well. But I will be I'll keep you up to speed via WhatsApp on all of that, and I'll let you know when it goes live. And how we then I'll be promoting it and so forth. And maybe there's a lot of people that tune into my platform, so maybe there'll be somebody that will listen, that will might be interested, and I hope so. Because I'll definitely be pushing it. But once
Okay.
again, Mr. Abel, thank you very much for
Okay.
coming through, man.
Fine. I'm just glad to have contributed.
100%, and I appreciate it, man. So yeah, take care. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll be in touch. Yeah,
Thank you very much. You have a
hundred
nice
percent, my
day, eh?
brother.
All the best.
Thank you, man. All right, man. Cheers, man. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you for including me. But there's much more to talk about. Okay.
There is, and I'll be in touch with regarding that.
Okay. Okay, Wesley.
All
All the
right.
best.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Abrams.
you.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Yeah, and just to my other listeners, yeah, I'll be
Other
adding
listeners,
all that information, all that additional information in the description box there below. And if you reach this far in the episode and you haven't already, please smash that like and subscribe button. And if you have any comments or anything, any questions, please let me know. Yeah, so thank you, and you'll catch me next week.